Howdy folks, this is Rich with Unloaded Media, and I'm here doing a video for the hashtag my first gun for Lakeview. Now, I can't do a video on any of my first guns really because I don't have any of them anymore. Years ago I had lost my job and it came down to either keeping my handguns or eating and feeding my family, so my firearms had to go. What I got here instead is a little something different. This is the first gun that I purchased to start rebuilding my gun collection. So what we have here is the HK USP in 40 Smith & Wesson. This was one of my bucket list guns going way back in 1993, 1994, when this gun first hit the market. And if you know HK's date codes, you can see the KE right there. That is a 1994, so first full year production on this firearm. Now, there were some that were made in 93. Those were pretty much test samples that were given out to the media and such for reviews. I don't know if the 93s ever made it onto the market officially for consumers, but this is within the first year of production for this firearm. And for all those out there to say polymer mags, because it does come with polymer mags, are no good, these are the original 10-round magazines that came with this. Why 10 rounds? Well, this firearm was manufactured at the beginning of the Clinton firearms ban, or assault weapons ban, so everything was limited to a 10-round magazine. So that's why this has 10-round magazines in it. And yes, these are the original magazines, and they are still just as strong as they were when they came out of the factory. That the polymer hasn't degraded any whatsoever, and they are still good to go. Now, what makes this firearm interesting? Well, as you can see, it uses 1911 style controls. You got the 1911 style takedown lever. You have your 1911 style safety lever, but this adds another little thing to it. It's also a decocker. So you got that going for it. It does use the German European style paddle release, which doesn't bother me whatsoever. I like it because I can get it easy with my trigger finger if I need to. I can get it with my thumb if I need to. It's not that big of a deal. I actually like the paddle release on here for the magazine, so that works very well for me. And those of you who have a P365 may recognize this rail. It's very similar to what SIG did with the P365. In fact, I got my P365 right here, and we can compare the two rails. You can see it basically looks like SIG took the USP rail and put that on the P365 for whatever reason, instead of putting a standard pick rail. But there you go. You can see why I've said in other videos or live streams why I think that SIG copied the HK USP rail. Well, there you go. There's why. It looks almost identical. So can only assume that the patent on the USP's rail has expired by now, which is why SIG was able to get away with using that style of rail, but I digress. Anyway, what makes this firearm different from others? Well, this was the first firearm manufactured specifically for the 40 Smith & Wesson. Up until this point, all other manufacturers had just copied what they had in 9mm, including HK. HK took the P07 and came out with the P10 or something along those lines, which was or was it the P40? It was somewhere around, something along those lines anyway, and had that in 40 Smith & Wesson. It didn't sell. Around the late 80s, early 90s, they started developing this weapon. And this weapon, contrary to popular opinion, would go on to be the basis for the Mark 23 for the U.S. military SOCOM pistol competition. A lot of people think it was the other way around, that the USP is based on the SOCOM pistol. No, the SOCOM was based on this one. one change that Smith made, I mean, why do I keep wanting to say Smith? Oh, because it says 40 Smith and Wesson right there. That's why. The one change HK made from the USP to the SOCOM is instead of having the safety also be the decocker, because of the requirements of the competition, they added a second control on here, which is actually the decocker. So you have an individual safety and decocker on the Mark 23. HK didn't do that for the USP, so they kept it the same way, and I actually think this is better than the Mark 23s. And you can see, you pull out this pin from the other side, you push in here after you get the grooves lined up, which you'll better be able to see the groove in a second. See the groove right there, and then your slide and barrel come off. Now, why am I taking this apart? Well, because I want to show you. This does not use your standard Browning action that we normally would see in a semi-automatic pistol. And this is how you take it apart for cleaning, by the way. So, anyway, what this does, you have what looks like a standard Browning barrel, Browning action barrel. And yeah, it's a little discolored. It's 30 years old, folks. It's going to get discolored a little bit. It's not rust. It's just patina from being used, and the coating that HK used rubbing off a little bit. No big deal. I mean, it's slippery in my hand because it is fully greased right now or oiled up. So yeah, I just cleaned it not that long ago. But what this does, okay, your standard Browning, this would lock into a lug built into the frame. As you can see, there's no lug in the frame. What HK did, because of the issues that Glock was having with the Glock 22 and Glock 23, where their frame was cracking, when they started developing this weapon, they came up with an actual recoil system, not just a recoil rod. And the barrel actually locks into a lug that's connected to the recoil rod, which has a secondary spring down the side there. So when this fires, it pushes back on the spring like normal, and it has that secondary spring in there. I don't know, you can probably see it better now, but this has a double recoiling action, basically, because of that. And what happens is when you put it in the firearm and you put your locking lug or your locking pin, which is also your slide release, it slides through this hole right here. It recoils back a little bit and knocks against there, and then, you know, we all know how these work. But that's how the recoil system on the USP works. It's not your standard Browning lockup, even though it looks like from the barrel it should be. It's a modified Browning action where, again, the locking lug is actually part of the recoil rod. So a little bit different, and I believe this is still under under patent from HK. I mean, it's under warranty because it has a lifetime warranty, so that's not an issue. But I got this a few years ago, and this was the first firearm I got to start rebuilding my collection of firearms. And this is hard to do when looking at it through a camera, but you gotta make sure you get the front end lined in there right, and then that locks down in the barrel like that. And yeah, slide your frame back on like this, and then you gotta get the little notch right there and lined up above where your thing lines up. Come on. Again, this is not easy to do when trying to look at it through a camera. It's a lot easier when looking at it with your own eyes. But yeah, sometimes you can get that in and then just slide that back and then push that in the rest of the way. Boom, there you go. Very much like how a 1911 or even a high power would work, and then pull the trigger, test fire. And it also is double action. So there, it's all set back up and ready to go. But yeah, that's the first gun I had that I used to start rebuilding my collection. Now, the reason for this video, as some of you may have heard, Lakeview Outdoors and his wife are going through a very hard time financially right now because of his wife's illness. I believe it's Guillain-Barré syndrome that she's dealing with, and they need all the help they can get, folks. If you see this, go over to Scotsman's channel. He has a video explaining the giveaway the donations that he's taking for Lakewood, and I believe there is going to be a giveaway and everything involved with that. So go over there, find out all the details. I'll have that link down below, and I also have Scotsman's email address down below where he's taking donation contributions and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, get out there, help out Lakeview. Him and his wife could use the assistance. They really could. Out of pocket, they're having to pay $1,800 for her medications, for her treatments, folks. That's not a small sum. Insurance companies may think it is, but anybody who's out there working in the real world knows that that's not a small sum. They can really use any assistance anybody can get. So go over there and check that out, and we'll catch y'all later. Have a good day, folks.